everybody, my name is Nikita Maheshwari and I'm a Senior Product Marketing Manager with Nutanix. Today I'm going to be covering the business value of Nutanix solutions. A lot of times what we get asked on is what's the financial justification behind the Nutanix solution, and today I'm going to be speaking about how, one, we can change the perspective, and two, talk in depth about a study we did around our customers' value proposition. So let's begin. One of the first things that when we're pitching the business value, we really like to start with is about changing the perspective, right? If you look at the cost structure of the data center, in 1996, operating expenses made up just 33% of the total data center costs, while capital expenses made up 66%. This is in 1996. If you look in 2014, this cost structure has completely changed, right? Operating expenses now make up 80% of the total data center costs, and capital expenses make up 20%. And this was an externally study that was done. This was by IDC. So the cost structure of the data center has completely changed, but the way a lot of our customers and prospects are still purchasing is the old way, right? They ask for an RFP, they have a certain budget in mind, they look at upfront costs. So before we can convince them about the value of Nutanix, the simplification, the overtime OpEx costs, we really need to help them change the way that they're thinking. When we talk about capital expenses, we're really talking about a lot of the upfront investments that they're doing. Storage, compute, networking. When we talk about operating expenses, we're talking about the day-to-day management costs. We're talking about power and cooling. We're talking about any other soft costs that might come with a solution like Nutanix. So one of the greatest benefits that we had this past year is we actually had IDC complete an independent study on Nutanix on our TCO and ROI study. Traditionally at Nutanix, we've spoken to a lot of customers and seen the business value that they're receiving. And we've generally found that our TCO savings come out to about 40 to 60% overall. This study goes in depth about where customers are getting the savings from, and that's what I want to speak about today. So to summarize this study, first I want to talk about the key metrics that came out of it. So first you can see business value, and the second is key performance improvements. So in business value, we measured things like ROI, payback period, and TCO savings. And then in key performance improvements, here were just some of the tasks that were actually measured in this paper. The way the study was conducted, IDC actually ran 2-hour independent interviews with all these 13 customers and understood in depth how exactly they were using the Nutanix product and over time that they'd been using it. So you can see some of the key savings here, right? Contrary to a lot of folks, they believe the payback period is very long for Nutanix. A lot of our customers actually saw a very good payback period of 7.5 months. The TCO savings are interesting, right? Because when we have internally done our own analysis on customers, we've also seen a TCO savings of about 40 to 60%. So this 58% was very much in line with what we've actually seen with our customers. And then finally, performance improvements. I'll get into this a little bit deeper, but you can see where a lot of the value from Nutanix is driving from. It's really the day-to-day management from storage, from server management, from networking that Nutanix is deriving a lot of its value. So let's begin with management savings. When we talk about Nutanix, one of the things that we talk about consistently is simplicity. Often in first pitches, we have the word simplicity come up sometimes like 20, 25 times. So how can we actually quantify a lot of these simplicity savings we're getting? And that's what's amazing about some of the metrics that we actually have here. So what you'll see here is 3 key metrics around management, right? Reduction in support, reduction in day-to-day management, and reduction in deployment time. And what these numbers are is they're actually telling you how much less time customers spent compared to the traditional solutions they had in their data centers. Important to keep in mind here is, one, what we're seeing the savings come from Nutanix, a key part of it is really in the ongoing operations, right? Things that sometimes are hard to quantify, but really ones that can make a massive change over the length of owning the Nutanix product. The important piece to keep in mind here is not to end it on OpEx savings, because that's not where the value comes from. The value is coming from business value that they're spending the other time on. So here was a quote that was one of my favorite from the study. This is from Lang's Building Supplies, who's a APAC-based customer. And what they're saying is instead of spending 65% of their time running things, they're now actually spending 65% of their time working on the business, right? So just because customers are saving time doesn't mean that that time is necessarily, wasted or not put in the business. It's actually put back into the business. It's being spent time on operations, on applications, on making sure end user experience is much better. And that's consistent with what we hear when we speak to customers. Next, let's talk about hard costs. A lot of times folks say, soft costs may or may not matter in my region. I care about the hard costs. So power and facilities is something that is a great benefit of hyperconverged solutions. However, it's often a hard sell, right? Power and cooling can be sitting under a different budget. It could be sitting under, they could be outsourcing this. It's something that might not be important. So it's important for us actually to make this part of the equation just so that they see that there's another place to find budget. So what our study actually showed is typically our customers saw about a 70% reduction in facilities and 50% power reduction over their lifetime of when they were owning Nutanix. The way that we've seen this actually be powerful when using in a pitch is actually to quantify and show them the dollar numbers that come with this, right? So this is a per year savings. They were seeing about an 18K reduction in facilities and an 18K power reduction. That adds up very quickly over 4 or 5 years that you're owning the product. So the key recommendation here is when you're talking about power and facilities, acknowledge that this may or may not be as important to the customer, but do mention that this is a place for them to find budget. And the second piece of this is definitely do the calculation and show them how much the savings add up. Oftentimes just using percentages, because our percentages are so great for power and facilities, don't show the paramount actual experience. So if you can actually just do a quick calculation, take the power that you have available for the Nutanix block, multiply it by the power number in your region, just show them the dollar hard savings that they would be getting. The second piece of this is the hardware cost reduction, right? So here in the study, they found that the hardware cost reduction was actually 30%. A lot of people are very surprised by this. Nutanix often comes out as more expensive, right? So where was this coming from? It was a few places. First, networking was included in this equation, and that's something we recommend whenever you're doing your TCO calculations, you include too. Networking with Nutanix is a lot simpler. In this study, they found that overall across these 13 customers, networking was 15% cheaper overall with Nutanix versus legacy, right? We don't require complex networking. We don't require fiber channel. So this is a great place to find savings for your customer. The second is thinking about hardware over the lifetime of them owning it. So oftentimes upfront, the hardware costs are going to be more expensive. We see that in a lot of cases. But really, as you're adding more Nutanix nodes over time, that's really where you're getting the benefit, not having to do forklift upgrades, not having to actually invest in massive new hardware. You're actually just buying one node at a time and adding it to that same cluster. So there is a value proposition for the hardware cost reduction if it's done correctly. Think through it over the lifetime of the kind of growth that they're going to have with the hardware versus just the upfront hardware costs. Resiliency and cost savings. This is what we're going to speak about next. This was actually one of the most important pieces of this study because really at Nutanix we had never sat down and quantified this until the study most recently. And why this is important is because this is such a key piece of our product. We spend a lot of time talking about resiliency. We speak about our distributed structure, right? We speak about just how resilient we built the product. We speak about how our Pro and Ultimate features, a lot of them are really around resiliency. We have tunable resiliency, the ability to actually make 2 or 3 copies of the data. We have data protection domains. We have multi-site DR. All of these are around our resiliency story, and the numbers here can really help you upsell Pro and Ultimate. So let's speak about what some of these numbers mean. So the first piece is number of unplanned instances. This means how many times did the system go down when you were not expecting it to. So the customers that we spoke to, what they found is with legacy, they had about 3.28 number of unplanned instances per year. With Nutanix, they had about 0.08, right? So very minimal actual unplanned instances. And the second piece is time to resolve. So how much time did it actually take to resolve this downtime? With legacy, it was 2.13 hours. With Nutanix, it was 0.31 hours, right? So there's a massive savings just in how much time they're actually spending now on resolution than they previously were. So these are 2 areas where a lot of savings are coming from. And finally, planned downtime. So given Nutanix actually has rolling upgrades, we can do this with the system on, there was no need to actually have planned downtime with Nutanix. So any downtime was actually unplanned downtime. So this whole matrix, this whole power of using these numbers is actually very powerful in leveraging to sell Pro and Ultimate. And a simple way to actually bring this up in a first call presentation is just ask them, how much downtime did you experience last year? Do you know how much effect that had on your end users? Because each minute of downtime can be significant, especially if your prospect or customer has a very critical workloads running on the platform. What IDC actually found is a minute of data center downtime could cost $7,900. This may be very high for some of your customers, but for some customers, this could be reasonable. So actually just asking them, how much downtime did you have last year? Let me show you the impact it could have on your business, right? Very quickly helping them understand the resiliency behind Nutanix. The most important and the last thing I want to end on is, what does this all mean to the bottom line of IT and business benefits? So it's amazing to have all these time savings and OpEx savings, but does it actually help the business? And these management savings are leading to companies actually having a lot faster access to the market, getting to market quicker, and eventually helping them with their bottom line. So as a result of a lot of the management savings, one of the key metrics that they measured is how much quicker are our companies, our customers, releasing applications. And they found that these applications could be released now with 40% reduced time, right? So one, they're getting applications a lot quicker to the market. The second is how much less time are they spending on day-to-day upgrades and maintenance, right? So reduced time per storage upgrade, this was 83%. So this is where really our one-click upgrade story comes into play, and this was a massive number that came out of the study. And third was application performance. So how much better are your applications performing? Is all these management savings, is it all just about ease of use, or does it actually have an impact on performance? And this is really where the 51% application performance came into play. So these numbers, what the study did is they look at all these numbers, they actually input it into a model, and they actually found that these were the kind of dollar savings they were getting, right? So because of reduced downtime, you can see the numbers here, about $190,000 of savings, and then additional revenue from improved operations was about $500,000, right? So the important thing is all these OpEx savings, the business value of Nutanix, where it really comes down to is helping customers actually make more revenue and helping them get their applications to the market more quickly. And this was a quote by Protected Trust. They're a service provider, and it was very impactful because what they're saying is they're customers that we probably would not have gotten if not for Nutanix. The impact to revenue is in the millions, right? So there's massive impact that you can have by basically bringing your application to the market quicker, by having quicker storage upgrades, by really having better performance, and that's really the business benefit that Nutanix brings. Thank you very much for your time today. For more details on Nutanix financial selling tools, you can go to nutanix.com/TCO. Here you'll find the IDC study where you can actually read the methodology and see where all the numbers in this presentation came from. The second, you'll find customer testimonials, so you can actually see what customers are saying and how they derive these savings. And third, you'll find a custom TCO calculator, so you can actually do custom calculations for your specific scenario. Thank you very much, and good selling.